In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create this amazing LED backlit acrylic sign using Affinity Designer and RE3 on a Muse laser cutter. So we're going to create a new artboard. We're going to make it 5 inches by 5 inches, and I've already imported my image I'm going to engrave, so I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it into the new artboard. And then we're going to use the transform panel, and we're going to make the width and the height 4 inches by 4 inches. And because I don't need this white background, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up the layers and I'm going to go delete that. So let's get rid of that curve. And then to make things easy to move around, I'm going to go up and I'm going to select the layer and then pick Layer Group so that this is all in a new group that I can then move around easily. And I'm going to center that in the top portion of the artboard. And then we're going to start to create our outline that we're going to cut the acrylic out with. So we're going to use an ellipse. And we're going to make that ellipse about 4 inches, 4.5 by 4.5 inches. So hold down the shift key as you stretch it out. And then when you get the size to where it's covering the image that we're going to engrave, you can go ahead and let go. And then we're going to center it over it a little bit. And then we're going to make sure that the stroke is at least a width of 0.2 and that we remove the infill so that all we have is the actual stroke. Next, we got to create a tab that we're going to use to set this in. So after we center the circle around our engraving, let's get the rectangle and let's build one. And we're going to make it narrow, a little bit narrower than the slot in the LED holder, which is 2.75, so we'll make this about 2.7. And if you can't get it exact, then go over here to the transform and just change the width, which is what I'm doing here. And then we're going to position the rectangle and center it with the ellipse and make it overlap it a little bit so that we can actually join the two. But before we join them, what we want to do is we want to make this a little bit longer so the tab will stick down into the LED holder. So let's go ahead and make that just a little less than 1 inch. And then once we've got that done, we can select the rectangle and the ellipse and use the combine operation to turn this into a complex curve, which that we can then use later. Now let's go ahead and save this out as a PDF and then bring it into RE3. And we'll drop it into a new project, and you want to take both the vertex and the raster data, and then let's go ahead and position it where we want. We're using absolute settings here, so that means that wherever we position the image, that's where the laser is going to cut. So you want to make sure you get it properly positioned on your material. We'll zoom in there so we can see it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and modify the settings for the raster engraving, and then we're going to remove some of the vector data that we don't need. So let's go ahead and let's open up the layers and let's click on raster, and we're going to use threshold, and we want to set it to 500 dpi. And then if you have a material, go ahead and pick it. In this case I don't, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use 80% power, 100% speed, and I'm going to change the threshold down to 130. That's what works good on my Muse, my 45 watt Muse. Yours might be a little bit different. Next, let's go over the vector data and let's click on those until we find the outline. Once we do that, then let's highlight the other vectors because we don't really need them. And we'll get rid of all the other vector elements. So we'll highlight them by scrolling all the way down and holding the shift key and then hit delete. And that'll just leave us with the outline. And that's what we're going to use to cut out the acrylic. So on my machine, I use a speed of 10%, 100% power, and 100% current. And that'll cut through an 1/8 inch acrylic really cleanly and very fast. So then once we've got all our settings set, then we'll go ahead. And I always like to run a perimeter and double check it visually at the laser, and if it looks good, the positioning looks good, then we can go ahead and we can come back and we can run the job. Now it'll prepare the job and it'll send it, and now it's time to sit around and wait. In this case, it takes about 18 minutes. When you're done, you're going to end up with something like this, and you can take and use some LA's Awesome cleaner or some Nova's plastic cleaner to get rid of all the dust and get it all cleaned up, and then peel off the plastic off the side and then put it in the holder. And you should get something that looks pretty much like this. Nice detail, different colors. Well, I hope you actually like this tutorial, and I hope it helped you out, give you an idea of something you can do. We'll catch you in another tutorial.